All right, we are having a special episode of Energizing Bitcoin, and we have a very special guest today and a special co-host today.
Thank you.
Lisa Hough. She was on a couple weeks ago, and it's been probably the most viewed episode already, and she really killed it. It was great. It was wonderful. So, good job. We're going to have to cut that out.
Yeah, we're going to have to start again.
Yeah. And that was actually probably the best intro I've had. So we don't want to cut it. We're going to leave that.
We're going to leave it in.
Yeah.
All right.
You played it well. So yes, Lisa Hough, thank you for co-hosting.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's an honor. And it is just a true honor to meet you.
Thank you.
The achievements that you have brought to El Salvador and to our community are huge. I'm a fan. Justin's been talking about you and his initial trip down there a year ago.
A year ago?
Over a year ago. No, that was when I first met you. Yeah.
Right.
And then I went back in May and took Gideon. That's when we met with you again with Sal. And I echo Lisa's comments there, is that you've been instrumental in kind of leading the charge of spreading the gospel of Satoshi, as Jake always puts it. So it's been a big, important thing for the entire industry. And I think that we all owe a great deal of support to El Salvador, President Bukele, and yourself for really taking on the challenge of leading the world in Bitcoin adoption. And we didn't even properly introduce you. It's Milena Mayorga. She's the ambassador. Milena Mayorga. I always call you ambassador, so I don't ever say your first name, but Ambassador Mayorga from El Salvador. She's the ambassador to the United States from El Salvador. Wonderful woman. Could not be more excited to have you on here.
Thank you,
So
Justin.
highest profile guest thus far. Very appreciative.
Thank you. No, very happy to be here in Houston. And as you comment, we're backing up President Nayib Bukele's decision. And I had to learn fast about the Bitcoin and all the Bitcoin industry, meet a lot of people, travel around the United States. And, even I had the opportunity to go to Lugano, Switzerland when we opened our first Bitcoin embassy. And, to be on stages where they want to listen about the El Salvadorian experience adopting Bitcoin, because we're the first country that decided that Bitcoin will be legal tender. And it was 1 year and a half from that announcement and that decision. And, all the media outlet and the international bank system, countries were scared about our move. They were wanting us to reverse the law. And it was like this whole propaganda and scaring the people that we were going to default because of $60 million that probably we could lose with the, the all the industry crash. And the thing is that it was really funny to, if you pay attention how a country can default because of 60 million, even we don't sell our Bitcoin, we're going to reserve it. And I think that's the main goal of President Nayib Bukele, to take the El Salvador to a different level in this new economic system.
I think that is a really good point that I actually haven't heard anybody talk about. Is you mentioned earlier in our talk at Empower that remittances make up, what's the number, $8 billion?
Almost $8 billion.
Almost
yes.
$8 billion.
Yes.
And the $60 million Bitcoin crash or loss is the way the IMF tries to put it. Even though it's not a loss, you still own that amount of Bitcoin.
And we paid our debt.
Yes, you met those debt obligations, and I saw even after that happened, it was like, well, yes, they met their debt obligations, but we still need to watch them. As if that it's like, can you not just admit that the FUD, the fear, uncertainty, and doubt that they're trying to perpetrate, and as you put, propaganda, I believe that's what it was. They attempt to make that whole loss of $60 million be an indication that you guys are going to go under or not fail to meet these obligations when you are getting almost $8 billion a year in remittances. So I don't know. I think it's really prime example of, the narrative that unfortunately the media and these international organizations like the IMF and all those type of groups are really kind of using illicitly, not properly, because it's not accurate, and it is propaganda in my opinion.
It is, and I'm so delighted that they tell the world to keep their eyes on El Salvador, right? Like, let's keep our eyes on El Salvador, because the vision of El Salvador adopting Bitcoin goes so far beyond the surface layer, I think, of why, people talk about it's the advantages to your country, right? Like, okay, it's easier form of payment, store value. It solves some remittance issues, but where I am really thinking these days is on a national security front. And this fortifies your country. It fortifies your borders when you have a reserve asset such as Bitcoin. So I hope the whole world continues to watch you closely.
I also want to mention that El Salvador also has dollars as legal tender. We are dollarized. We don't have colones anymore. So, we have to lead with these two economic system and try to fit in the traditional banking system. And then, of course, do these very robust steps to have something different, because El Salvador is a tiny country. We're the smallest country in the Americas, and but right now we're leading in different areas. And I think what is very important is all, the rebranding of El Salvador, because after only Googling El Salvador, you could see in the past a lot of bad news. Crimes, homicides. We were the most dangerous country in the world, and right now we're the safest in the Americas. And that took President Bukele a very short period to make all these changes. And I was telling you backstage that, two of the main problems of Latin America, one of them is corruption, and the second one is crime. But crime is very difficult to defeat it because of the corruption. So President Bukele defeated both. And that's why he can take right now these robust moves. So El Salvador right now is recognized as a country that, for example, has illegal tender, Bitcoin has illegal tender. And we were in all the financial news, and I think in the political world, not because of gangs, not because of crime or corruption, because of Bitcoin. So this is good for us, because now we have also increased our tourism of Bitcoiners, that they want to come to El Sonte, which was in an early stage, very organic adoption of Bitcoin. And, they were used to receive Bitcoin before the announcement of President Bukele. So right now, it's a decision. You can decide if you use or not use Bitcoin, receive it or not. But the big companies, for example, and U.S. companies, for Walmart would give you one name, or McDonald's, Starbucks, all of them, they have to have a wallet to receive Bitcoin, because big companies can afford it. But entrepreneurs are very wise and smart, because they're putting Bitcoin signs in their establishments, and that they receive also Bitcoin. So it's open. I think that's the beauty, because it's liberty.
Right.
It's not something that you're obligated to use. You're free to decide.
You handled that excellently too. This racket out here, I apologize. Good grief. But I want to.
It's applause.
Yes,
it's applause.
That's applause. You're right. Good job. Perfect. I agree, and I think one thing also I haven't heard talked about enough. You mentioned McDonald's and like Walmart and all these bigger companies that I guess
Pizza Hut.
Yeah, right. Pizza Hut. These groups are going to see a drop in transaction fees from like Visa and debit card payments or credit card payments when they're accepting Bitcoin. they're going to realize that. And I think that is like one of the underrated areas that's going to further adoption everywhere around the world, because these companies are going to recognize it.
And El Salvador, the commission is really high.
Right.
To use a credit card, it's
for
very,
example,
very high.
How high is it in El Salvador?
Here it's 2%, and El Salvador is like 5%.
Wow.
Right.
A meaningful number.
Think about that. Yeah, because then if I'm McDonald's and I see, wait, I don't have to pay, like this isn't coming out of my cut when somebody's using Bitcoin as opposed to using a credit card or a debit card, that's going to tell me like, well, shoot, I'm making even if it's in the US, an additional 2% on each transaction that people use Bitcoin as opposed to Visa. That's something I'm going to look at as one of those companies and say, we need to start accepting that in other places. Even though it's going to be a small portion right now, in El Salvador, it's a great test case for like a bigger segment of the population utilizing Bitcoin for everyday purchases, and that money staying either in the business's hands or in the consumer that is buying these.
And it's so beautiful to see all the videos on Twitter, for example, or Instagram, that somebody comes and they're paying their tourist card with Bitcoin in the airport. Then the taxi, or they can buy some pupusas, coffee, sodas. They go to the supermarket. It's a whole experience.
It's a whhole marketing campaign for El Salvador by everybody that goes to visit El Salvador. And you were saying that you Google you used to Google El Salvador, and crime would pop up, and I'm thinking to myself, who really needs to adopt Bitcoin is New York City or Chicago or LA.
Right. But they were supposed, the mayor of New York City, that
he did.
It's supposed that
some of his payment or salary,
right,
something like that.
But think about those cities from a safety perspective, right? The narrative is that it's unsafe, but I mean, my theory is that here in Texas, where we have abundant energy and abundant Bitcoin miners, that hopefully we can get rid of our property taxes, right? Because there's so much tax revenue coming from businesses here that maybe one day we reduce or we get rid of our property taxes, and it incentivizes folks to come and live here.
One of the advantages of Bitcoin City, it would be that, a lot of incentives is going to be created for the Bitcoin industry.
For people to use Bitcoin?
To come, to put, your enterprise over there. And, I think this is something very attractive too.
I agree too, because I think we haven't really even seen the ancillary benefits in El Salvador yet, because we're still, you still got to build it out. It takes time. It takes time.
Imagine 1.5 years since the Bitcoin law.
Right. But when we start seeing those, you're going to see a lot of new jobs and a lot of new industries pop up because of this. And so you're going to have like miners will get down there. Well, then that's going to lead to construction jobs and electrical jobs. And I think already, I know, we're talking about paying for 5 students from El Salvador to come up to the U.S. to do some studies and work in Bitcoin, things like that. And then they can take it back to El Salvador. So like there's things like that I think are going to continue to grow. And you're going to start reaping all these ancillary benefits. And I also think there's going to be people, we talked about this on the talk today as well, but you're going to start seeing a lot of people want to come in there for like financial opportunities and financial like services, and make it almost like a Singapore of Central America. Like I really...
President Nayib Bukele, he's always tweeting Singapore.
Yeah, okay. Well,
so it's like, it's a model, that a country deserves to have another opportunity. And in a traditional way, it's really complicated. And you were talking about some of the, what should Salvador in DC is like, Bitcoin experiment, and really bothers like experiment, like a lab,
Right.
So that's why when I'm on stage in this conference, I'm like, you really need to look at Salvador and see how you can be part of this, because we are the only country in the world that Bitcoin is legal tender. You can trade, you can do everything. Like the dream, of these past years. So El Salvador has to succeed. Yeah. Because if El Salvador doesn't succeed, imagine how long it's going to take for Bitcoin.
Right. Someone else to do it. I agree.
El Salvador is because, very young president, intelligent, brave, because you have to have the courage.
It is very brave.
Super brave. You have to have the courage to say to the system, no, I'm not going to reverse the law. With all the pressure, all the media against you, all the entire world, all the international community.
It's no different than the whole world being against us, though, right? I feel like I leave the Bitcoin sphere and I go out into the regular world. And I was on your podcast, and my brother called my parents and said, "Oh my gosh, she was on this podcast. You should listen." And my parents said, "Oh, we've heard too many bad things about Bitcoin."
Oh yeah.
I mean, right? Like it's like our entire ecosystem thinks that. I mean, that our ecosystem we're safe, but on the outside we're not safe, right? Everybody thinks we're crazy. But I would love to know how you feel personally when you go to sleep at night or you wake up in the morning and you're like, gosh, am I really doing this? Right? Because we're going to wake up in 5 years or 10 years or look back in 20 years.
Well, I think there is a project for El Salvador. And right now, President Bukele announced that he's going to re-elect. So, this is going to continue. But we need a new generation. I'm part of that new generation of politicians in El Salvador. And, I had to help my country in this decision and President Bukele and understand why. And, because people doesn't understand Bitcoin. They really don't know about Bitcoin. So it is a need of education and for our citizens too, because we launched the Chivo wallet with the law, and it was the first wallet in El Salvador. The traditional banking didn't have any wallet. So, Apple Pay, no, that doesn't exist in El Salvador. After Bitcoin and Chivo wallet, the banking, they started to launch their own wallets. But it's a process because in my country, there's a lot of people that they don't have bank accounts. So with the Chivo app, 4 million people downloaded the app out of 6 that we live in El Salvador and 3 abroad. So imagine.
That's a pretty good,
very fast
rate.
in the I think 3 or 4 months. It was a crazy, with the app, everybody was downloading the app. Of course, President Bukele gave an incentive, but we were free to use it, to cash it, to take it out of the ATMs. But, it was an incentive. So 4 million Salvadorians, they have the app. They have the wallet. Right now, we're using the wallet for transactions, like, probably a woman that sells cosmetics, and then that is very easy for Salvadorians to do like a payment, because I can send it to you, the money, so you don't have to pay the boss to go to the office of your customer to receive, the money of the product that you sell, etc. So through the Chivo, like the informal people are using it a lot. Second, we have the possibility to send remittances to El Salvador. So it gets a little bit of get to know the app and how it works, because some of our offices in the United States, they have the ATM. So you can put all the money over there and zero cost. You can send it to El Salvador, to another wallet, or to a bank.
That's huge.
That's huge.
To a bank.
Huge.
Yeah.
Zero cost. You know how much people are paying in intermediaries?
Like 35%?
For example, if you want to send from $1 to 800, it's like in some cases you pay $8, $10 for a transaction. So
that's money that stays.
Even if you have a fee, probably if you use your credit card, or if you have your debit card, there's going to be probably a transaction, because here in the United States, they're going to charge you, but it's going to be less than $8. So imagine multiplied $8 per each remittance that is sent to El Salvador. And we received last year 7.7 billion. So it's almost 8. So it's a lot of money. So this also industry is losing. Not only the POS for credit cards, but the intermediaries for remittances. So this is a new alternative. So
that's money that's coming out of people's pocket. So you're hurting the individuals and you're hurting the economy down there, because that intermediary is typically probably going to be in the United States or somewhere outside of El Salvador, and they're keeping that. And that money that then gets to that end
so
user.
There is a percentage of people that are sending remittances through the Chivo wallet. I think around 40 million.
Mm-hmm.
Out of 8 is really like
a lot of money.
3% or something like that. But when you say 40 million,
right?
It's $40 million.
And the average of a remittance is around $100 to $300. So a lot of people are smart using our Chivo wallet, and that $8 are in their pocket, not in somebody else's pocket.
Right.
So this is going to take more time, but we have a new generation that are more friendly with all the technology, and they are the ones that are showing even myself to send money through the wallet to El Salvador because I have to pay something over there, or I want to send something to my mom or whatever. They're showing me. So, it's going to take time, because here in the United States, we have a lot of Salvadorians that they don't have a banking account. They have their money in the house, in probably under the sofa or under the mattress. And that's really sad, because they're here in the United States. And, there's no financial inclusion. There's a lot of people that are out of the system.
So that Chivo wallet, can I use that here in the U.S. or is that solely?
Only for Salvadorians.
So if I'm a Salvadorian in the U.S., I can use it?
Yes. Because you have your national ID.
Anybody who is a national.
Yeah. Only for nationals. Yeah. Yes, you have you have to type your national ID to get an account.
I tried to get one when I was down there.
Well, you want to be a.
I know. You want to
go down
there.
First step residence.
All right. I got to get
step
residency. All right.
To get the national ID only for Salvadorians.
I did buy with Strike though when I was down there.
You did.
So I could use Strike, and I'm not joking. It's the coolest freaking thing when you can go basically anywhere and pay with Bitcoin. Because it's like, I don't like getting rid of my Bitcoin necessarily, but I also am one of the believers that we have to spend it. You have to spend it.
And when you have somebody like him, gringo, coming to El Salvador, that he doesn't speak a word of Spanish.
Not a word.
To pay.
See?
And so, it's a big challenge for them.
Well, I just want you to know he came back from the first trip when he met you, and we saw one another at the Houston Bitcoin meetup, and he's like, "Oh, it's a great trip. Let me show you all these videos." So he's showing me the videos and pictures of his family, and then next thing he's showing me, he's like, "Can I show you the house that I'm looking at?"
Yeah, I did. I might not speak English. I'm going to learn.
Yeah,
I'm going to learn. So
El Salvador is so beautiful. It's a tropical weather, really green, a lot of volcanoes. It's because it's a small country. You can go to the mountain, and you can be in the beach.
Can anyone move to El Salvador?
Of course.
I can move to El Salvador
right now. President Bukele extended the period for a visa card 6 months, so you can be like a tourist around El Salvador for 6 months, which before was less time. And then we're working in all the process for the residency and then citizenship, because it's part of this. El Salvador is right now part of this economic liberty. So, it's a place that you can go and, of course, have a dream house or a dream life, and we have the things to do it. But as I said, you need to invest in El Salvador because, there has to be a flow of companies coming and projects. We're good for services. So, to have a cluster over there, to have a company that gives you the services from El Salvador to your company here. There's a lot of ways you can invest in El Salvador. Because, if we don't succeed, I'm sorry,
Right.
but it's going to take longer.
Yeah, it'll put everything backwards
Yes.
if they don't succeed.
And right now, it's been good for El Salvador.
Yeah, I think it's been incredible for you guys. I touched on this also when we talked earlier, but I want to expand on it some because Gerson Martinez is a really good friend of mine. I love the guy. I don't know if you've met him, Lisa. Have you met him? He's awesome. He's like literally one of the nicest people I think you'll ever meet. He's an El Salvadoran. His parents left during the Civil War. And when they got to the States, he was born here. But his parents had to send him back to El Salvador because they were going to like lose their job. His mom was working for another family of some sort. But so he ended up spending a little bit of time there, ended up coming back, but they like didn't see him for like 3 years. And he talked about at the dinner we had in Miami last year, he was there and he talked about how, he frankly felt embarrassed at times when he would be with friends and, if he's from El Salvador, just it was embarrassing for him because of what they were kind of known for.
Related to gangs.
Right.
Oh,
gangs and all that. Yeah. And so he's talked about, and he does a much more eloquent job of talking about it than I do, but he's talked about how the move to make Bitcoin legal tender literally has changed so much for him from a pride standpoint and being like, I want to tell people where I'm from and my heritage and my nationality.
If you're born abroad, it's like here you can have the U.S. citizen, because of your parents. So it's the same in El Salvador, but it's a step you have to do. It's a paperwork you have to do. So he didn't have the Salvadorian citizenship.
He didn't.
So he did all the paperwork, and now he has his passport, his national ID, because he wants to be Salvadorian too. Before, it was really sad, and a lot of our people tell me here that they were really sad when they were like, oh, gang, MS-13. Well, we're good people.
Right. Absolutely. And may I ask you just to expand on your thought there? One of the things that we hear so much about in Texas is our immigration problem, right? Like it's like in your face all the time. Oh, we have this immigration problem. And my theory would be that through Bitcoin, as other countries adopt it, why would you come here? If I can live in El Salvador where the weather is beautiful and
you would freaking love it.
Oh, I would love it. I love warm weather.
So let me explain you.
Yes, please.
After taking care of the security in El Salvador, people are staying. We are watching all the flows coming to the southern border. And, CVP, each month, they have this charge. And you can see the amount of people. And El Salvador right now only represents the 2%. So it decreased a lot. We're like the number 2 or 3 sending people. And right now, oh my God, the chart is decreasing.
Right. So if I live somewhere other than the U.S. and I've been thinking, my whole life, oh, I'm gonna immigrate or I'm going to sneak across and get into the U.S. I mean, really, why would we do that if we could have a country like El Salvador who was really
people don't want to leave.
No, why would you leave your family?
Security.
It's not easy.
No, it's
come and
horrible.
not eat pupusas and not speak Spanish and you don't have to even the weather
I might go
is
illegally
different.
Immigrate to El Salvador. I don't speak the language
you
down
don't
there.
have to. They're working on a program.
They do it because it wasn't another alternative.
I know.
It was because of safetyness.
Right.
And right now they feel free, they feel in peace, they feel good, but we need jobs. So that's the next step.
Right.
And that's why
that's
it's very important to come all around the United States looking for the opportunities. I just, before coming to Houston, I was in Atlanta, with a different chamber of commerce with Texas. We're going to also sign an MOC, which is good. So we can trade, we can have a exchange of experience in energy and much more topics. So we are looking these bilateral relations with states like Texas, which is one of the powerful economies in the world. And because also for Texas to show, okay, El Salvador was, really bad sending people, but right now it's changing because, of the security. So it's good if we trade so they have jobs and they will stay. That's smart. It's a good model.
Mhm.
So you mentioned earlier that you need jobs to come to El Salvador and that companies here could use the services in El Salvador. If I'm a business owner in Texas or in the United States, how do I find you? How do I find these opportunities? How do I connect with you?
Okay, so of course we have the embassy in DC, but we have offices, consulates around the United States. Also in West El Salvador, Proesa is another way to finding more about El Salvador. And the thing is that we have the free trade agreement, the CAFTA-DR, that are the rules, to have
Govern the business
yes,
relationship. So
yes.
that's
very
something
good
people don't
because
understand.
that gives you security.
Right. It protects your investment.
It doesn't matter who is in the administration. That's a protection for
Right.
companies and big companies. In El Salvador, we have a lot of U.S. companies over there.
Yeah, that is a really interesting.
Yeah. You can go to an international arbitrator, international court in the event that something happens to your investment down there because of the free trade agreement.
Right.
So that's a lot of things that people get concerned about, like, oh, I'm investing internationally. And honestly, El Salvador, despite the historical viewpoint of it, I would argue is a very safe place to invest right now, especially in a Bitcoin-related industry. I've said this on my show before. I'm sure you listen to every single episode that we've had.
I'm sure she has.
But I would invest, if you had asked me today, right now, like, where am I going to put my money with a Bitcoin-related industry? New York State, Pennsylvania, a lot of different states throughout the country, or El Salvador, I'd go El Salvador because it is safer. It's a Bitcoin-friendly country that has made it a focal point for its identity going forward. Like, I do believe El Salvador will end up becoming the Singapore of the Western Hemisphere with, a financial hub for the world when it comes to Bitcoin and Bitcoin
Imagine
industries.
if we didn't do this decision.
Could you imagine talking about El Salvador that way? Yeah.
Not in this program.
No way.
No, not at all.
Did President Bukele run on the platform of Bitcoin being? I don't know enough about when he ran the first time.
Two things he didn't mention. He didn't mention about the security plan, and he didn't mention about the Bitcoin law. So when he announced the security plan, the territorial control plan, everybody was amazed about all the changes and the moves he made inside jails. Jails used to be a social club, and for the very dangerous people. They used to have pizza. They used to have television on jail. They used to have
Women
PlayStation, prostitutes.
Yeah.
They were having so much fun.
It was like Pablo Escobar's self-made prison he had in Colombia.
Oh my gosh.
It was a social club. And so he started doing a lot of order inside jails to mix, because there are different gangs, to mix them all up. And the international community was worried about probably fights inside jail. Nothing happened. And so law and order was implemented in El Salvador. And now we can see after 1 year with the state of exemption, but from before, because President Bukele is almost going to be 4 years in the administration, all the changes. So it was a need for us, because with security, you can have tourism, you can have, trade. It's what you need for a country. And so it was this that he didn't mention during campaign, and also Bitcoin. Bitcoin was another thing. When he announced it, everybody was like, what?
When did he first buy Bitcoin? Do you know personally? When did he first
No,
buy
I really don't know. But I'm sure he was already.
He might be Satoshi. I don't know.
He could be Satoshi.
He was already, a Bitcoiner.
You'd have to be.
Yes.
Right. I mean, this doesn't just.
No, this is not something
But,
you wake up
what
and
also
decide.
was important that when he won, I used to be in the Congress at that time. I was in the other political party. I was from the right and he was from the left. So we were trying to change things that it was impossible to change. They were so corrupt. They were doing deals under the table. It wasn't any ideology. It's just so fake. So I was over there in the Congress and I suffered a lot of violence, political violence, because I was pointing out all these bad deals. And when he won, he didn't have, seats in the Congress, just like 20, because he couldn't run on his own party that, he is a new party.
They kicked him out, didn't they? It was the initial party.
From the left.
And he started the new party.
He started the new party that he couldn't end all the paperwork. So he had a taxi, like another party to run. He won. But that party was so small that I think right now, they only have like 6 seats, but at that time it was like 20. So, or 12 plus the rest of us. I said, I'm going to help you because of the country. We were during COVID. He was 6 months being president when COVID hit. And this Congress didn't want to give him money for the security plan and for COVID vaccines. That at that time it was like, you had to have because you didn't know. And I'm like, they were so stubborn, blocking him. So I was backing him in all these movements that were for my people, my constituents. And so I had a lot of trouble with my political party. I had to resign. And I was trying to run again independent, but the system punish you. And they don't let you. So President Bukele called me and he told me, you are in the same path. You want the best for El Salvador. You understand the political atmosphere and environment that El Salvador is living. And it's good that you go to Washington and, you can speak from your experience about this. And so it's been really challenging with the transition from one administration to the other one. With one administration, the former administration, we had really good and close relations. With this, it's been different, very challenging. And, we have to say, hey, we are an independent country. We are not back to our front yard. We're not from the United States. So let us take our own decisions with respect. So it gets time because, so before we were only begging for money from aid, and President Bukele is in a different mindset. We don't ask for money. We want to trade. We don't want aid because aid is what makes you dependent of that state.
You're right.
So I was reading about you and I noticed that when you accepted this position, it was sort of like right in the throes of COVID and all of this just uncertainty through the world. And it occurred to me that, wow, not only did she accept a position in a government during a time where the entire world was unsettled, but you accepted a spot in a government that was, in the midst of massive transition and a massive new initiative. What a just momentous occasion for you.
Imagine everything was by Zoom. I had to start traveling. I'm like, I have to go out of DC because we really need to move the trade agenda. And I came to Texas. This is like my 5th time here in Texas. I went to Florida. I started traveling around the United States where they were open for business. They were wanting to have meetings in person. And it was quite challenging. But I think right now everything is, normal over there in DC. But I'm a little bit, a small amount of time over there in DC. I really need to travel around the States looking for opportunities.
Right. So how do your counterparties in DC treat you now versus what was their impression of El Salvador?
They're always asking me about President Bukele's decision about Bitcoin, about the state of extension, about this, about that. A lot of explaining because sometimes you don't understand because your constitution is different.
Yeah.
And, it's a lot of explanations. And of course, sometimes they're really interested and curious about their citizens are asking their presidents to follow President Bukele. And I'm sure that bothers a lot.
I think so,
because a lot of presidents are giving, some comments. I don't want to comment about El Salvador, but So, and you can see that, that people are pushing them. Hey, this is the way. You have to think about us, our rights, our need. So it's quite challenging for the rest of the presidents in the hemisphere.
An incredible opportunity for you to educate and for you to demonstrate your leadership, your strong leadership ability, and your connection to President Bukele as a team, right? Like you guys are on a mission, and it's shaping your country, but it's also just seeping out into the rest of the world. I mean, I say El Salvador, I don't know, at least once a day.
Imagine.
And I never said El Salvador before.
You have to visit El Salvador.
I know, I'm coming. I'm really eager to come. I know. Well, I've been eager. He really did come back from that first meeting with you, and he was just like, "You have to go. Look."
I took him to the volcano.
I know.
To the Chava volcano. It's so amazing.
So amazing.
That part of El Salvador is so beautiful, and nothing happened before over there. So President Bukele is taking a lot of investment to that area. When you ask somebody here in the United States, I'm sure they're from the east part of El Salvador. Nothing happened over there. Not only the project of Bitcoin City, but, there's a lot of things going on over there to try, to promote a new economic era for them. And it's so beautiful. You cannot imagine how beautiful it is over there.
I wish we could, maybe we can edit in some of the photos I have from that trip on the episode, because it was gorgeous. I mean, when those islands out there from off the volcano when we're looking out.
Because it's the Gulf. We share the Gulf with Nicaragua, a little bit with Honduras. And there's some islands over there. So it's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
When I'm up there, I was in Playa El Tamarindo opening a new hotel, a boutique hotel. I'm like lying over there. I'm like, oh my God, this doesn't look like El Salvador. It's so beautiful.
It's incredible.
Yes, we deserve to develop. It's a lot of treasure over there.
It is. And I think that 10 years from now, people are going to look back and be like, I effed up really bad, but not taking advantage of the opportunity that I think there are in El Salvador right now. Like, I want to go buy property down there so bad, because I think 10 years from now, you're not going to have the opportunity to do it for the same type of cost you could right now. And
also that we need, because of the
gringos like me that can't speak English.
We need hotels. We need, a lot of infrastructure because we're full. Even Airbnb is full all the time.
Yeah. Right. So, and I'm telling you, there's that whole coast on that east side is, it's gorgeous, and it's untouched.
Yeah.
Like it is.
It's virgin. It's
completely. There's nothing there yet.
Let's start a podcast down there.
I told her earlier we want to do a documentary up there.
Let's do
down
it.
there. But I want to go buy stuff first, because I don't
because then everybody's going to buy it.
Everybody's going to go do it. So I got to get ahead of it first, selfishly. I'm going to go buy some, and then we'll do all that. But yeah, I do want to do a podcast. I'm hoping she gets me in there so we can do one with President Bukele.
So there's a lot of,
Oh, you just skipped right over that. I want to get down there so we can do this with President Bukele. You can make that happen, right?
I cannot promise.
Come on.
I just want to shout out to Greg Foss, because I know you tweeted, "Hey, Greg Foss, I want to get you on the podcast." It's pretty hot company, right? President Bukele, right? The ambassador,
Greg Foss.
Now you're asking Greg Foss. Like, Greg Foss, you should come on before the offer is rescinded.
He did respond.
Oh, awesome.
He did respond. He didn't. He liked it, but you know,
All right.
I'm gonna keep hitting them up.
I think he's skiing somewhere else again.
Oh
So,
yeah.
anyway.
Living the life.
Yeah. Well,
I'm jealous.
She can't speak for President Bukele, but you're so lucky that you have such a open line of communication.
I am very lucky. I've seriously, they've been so nice and wonderful to talk with, and
You know, we really appreciate when somebody takes the time to go to El Salvador. And
it's not that hard.
I
it's
always,
awesome.
yeah, it's a direct flight.
Yeah.
It's, you know,
Yeah, it's like 2.5 hours.
2.5 hours. And, you know, different big cities in the United States, they have direct flights. And, you know, to go and to tell the Salvadorian people, hey, I want to pay in Bitcoin. So they know, you know, what is Bitcoin's like, you know, do transactions.
Right.
And sometimes the tourists help them. No, then push here. Yeah, you receive it. They have to do it.
So, okay, I'm going to plan a trip to El Salvador. What's my first step? I'm going to book my flight. I'm going to land. Well, no, before I do all that, where am I going to stay? If I'm just Googling, what am I Googling? All right, El Zante.
Bitcoin Beach. Super
That's
dope.
the Mecca. That's like,
all right, but where else should folks go?
Bitcoiners is very important.
San Miguel was awesome. I had a good time there. San Miguel was wonderful.
Yeah, all the Punta Mango, which is going to be, you know, that Surf City Part 2. A lot of nice hotels, boutiques are being developed over there. And it's less crowded than El Zonte.
Because of Bitcoin? These hotels are being, or were
you
they
know,
already?
Surf.
Okay. Oh, the surf.
We have the best waves and a lot of surf tournaments.
I crushed it when first time surfing ever. She didn't believe me.
I couldn't believe it. It's so hard.
Mardo told her though. I freaking killed it.
Mardo confirmed me.
I did. I'm not lying about that. This gringo could surf.
Surfers brought, I think, Bitcoin to El Zonte.
Agree.
And, you know, that was like very organic adoption. And now, of course, everybody wants to go and see El Zonte because it was something that they adopted Bitcoin before the law. But, you know, we have a lot. If you want to stay in a volcano, it's beautiful. Izalco volcano. They have hotels and small villages that you wake up and you see the volcano.
And there's lakes.
So beautiful.
So beautiful lakes.
Just like Houston.
Oh, when I flew over there and I got to see it all, I thought, man, this looks just like Houston.
Yeah, no,
not at all.
Not at all.
Not at all.
Okay, well, I'm coming. I want to come in the next couple of months.
I am coming in the next couple of months. Yeah, for sure. So I'm gonna bring my kids.
So you're more than welcome to El Salvador, and you know, to experience Bitcoin over there, and to see how it works in a daily basis. When you go to the supermarket, you go to the gas station, you can pay with Bitcoin.
And the food was incredible. So I gotta say, I had 4 shrimp stuffed lobsters, a huge thing of ceviche, like big old huge thing of it, and 2 carafes of sangria that was literally the best sangria I've ever had in my life. Right. And we're eating on the beach. A
lot of seafood.
Oh, seafood's great.
Yes.
We're eating on, like, not on the beach, but on a bluff over the water. Right. And, you can hear the waves. It's just the weather. Breeze is coming through. It's perfect. Guess how much that cost? 4 shrimp stuffed lobsters, big old thing of ceviche, 3 things of ceviche, actually, because there was 3 of us. And then that was 2 carafes of sangria. Guess.
$50.
$34. $34.
And then we have our archaeological ruins too that you can go and see.
Yeah.
You know, it's
incredible.
Really, and then small towns like
it's going to be
or where the coffee plantations are in Santa Ana.
Oh, the coffee was incredible down there too. I'm not even a big coffee guy, but I was like, man, I'm not even putting any cream or anything. This place is incredible. I ended up staying like 2 more days at that first trip because I wanted to stay without kind of
the whole
right. They rolled out the red carpet.
You know,
I saw the pictures, Justin.
They
Ballard.
rolled out the red carpet. It was wonderful, and I really appreciate it, and I love the red carpet treatment. But I wanted to stay like a couple more days and just kind of see what the city was like in San Salvador and in the country. And
then downtown city was refurbished by President Bukele when he was mayor of San Salvador.
So much construction going on.
San Salvador City, Centro Histórico, is a beautiful place in San Salvador that you have to go and see around.
I felt safe the entire time. We walked around everywhere. I was taking Ubers. I had to go do a COVID test at the local hospital. Like, I felt fine.
But no COVID test anymore.
No COVID test anymore.
COVID
right?
vaccines,
Perfect.
no nothing. That's part of
got
our
rid of that.
past.
Good.
Yeah.
Yes, but it was lovely. I had no problems, no issues. She's right. I don't speak shit for Spanish. I don't know any of it. I had a conversation with one guy that it was one of the security guys that I thought I was having a conversation that was correct, and it was not at all. We were talking about two very different
But
things.
it's our people are so charming,
Kind,
and yes,
loving,
yes.
sweet. Just
They will love to help you.
yes, they were. They were wonderful, and the feeling of hope from the young people in particular, and that's what I really noticed the 2 days after that I stayed, because I was just trying to
And
do the best job I could talking to
I don't know
people.
if you went to downtown city, but
I
it's
did.
so funny because they have always like a band over there live,
Yeah.
and everybody dances in the plaza. And
to-
they film all the tourists from Europe, dancing over there, cumbia. and
Tuco, was that
everything.
in Tuco? We went
No,
to
no,
Tuco.
no. It's in downtown.
Oh,
San
okay.
Salvador.
Downtown.
Well, we went to El Tuco, right? That's the
Yeah, that's music also.
man, we
live
had so much
music.
fun. I
Yeah,
partied so
Tunco.
hard. It was great. It was
Yeah.
great. It was
Over
awesome.
there in La Libertad. Yeah,
It was
fun.
a blast. It was wonderful. But yeah, somebody's knocking. They're gonna have to wait. But yeah, I would encourage everybody to go down there, and I would encourage people to look to invest in El Salvador. It's a very welcoming, friendly business environment, and they're doing a
And
ton
there's
to bring
a lot
people
of
in.
opportunity in energy.
There's what?
Opportunity
Right.
in energy because we're giving incentives if it's
Mhm.
renewable, and there's always something that you can do in El Salvador.
Right. Don't buy the big media hype against them. It's not.
I will
accurate.
not. I don't buy the big media
No, I
hype
know
on
you
any
wouldn't.
topic.
I'm talking to the 8 people who watch this.
You know what? I think it's a movement among Bitcoiners
Mhm.
that we don't watch
We
the
don't even watch
mainstream
it.
media
No.
anymore. Like that's one of the things with seed oils that you give up, I guess, is mainstream media. It's the narrative is total garbage.
I sent President Bukele the whole paper that New York Times posted about El Salvador's default, and it was a picture of him and when he presented Bitcoin City. And it was like this big, the whole page, and I'm like, it's amazing, how they are spending all this money in this publication talking bad about El Salvador is because they are scared about
Right.
Bitcoin.
I
That's
agree.
Well,
all.
I know. I think that's so frustrating, or more than frustrating. It's not the right word. That the U.S. that we do let the media outlets put that garbage on TV. It's dangerous for our citizens,
But,
right? Much in the way that you have safety in your country because you have Bitcoin. I feel as though without it, we can't go forward safely. There's no way from an international perspective that we go forward without Bitcoin. And there's, we see the disintegration inside of our own culture. So what you guys have done is remarkable and should be an example. And you should be on the front page of the New York Times all the time.
And we
Right,
appreciate
right.
that's why social media power, because
I
you
completely agree.
you post something, and that's can go viral, and it's
We can-
you.
we can
It's nothing
combat-
paid. It's
Right.
what you think
We can
about El
combat that.
Salvador.
Mhm.
So I think right now that's very important for society, the
Yep.
freedom of speech through social media, because that's the way I won also as a politician. Because
social media?
my party
Mhm.
didn't help me,
Mhm.
didn't give me opportunities. I didn't have money to go on TV
Mhm.
every night and spots and everything. So my campaign was through social media, and I won. So people are taking the message.
That's what's so crazy about the internet, even and social media, is it can be used for very bad things,
Of
but it can
course.
be used for very, very good things like this, like
Yes.
getting out your own message and being able to combat the narrative
Yes.
that big media and their agenda has, and
And
they
I
use
think
it as
there is a crisis in the entertainment
right,
industry. They don't have ratings.
right, yeah,
Yeah, they don't have ratings.
yeah, that's true. That is true. They don't get any ratings, and I think but that's a sign too. I think that people are maturing past this, they're recognizing on a
And
much bigger scale.
President Bukele takes the time to give interviews to YouTubers or, all these leaders in social media that spread the message, because he knows that, that these big companies are not going to project what he really wants to say.
Right. And you know what I've noticed about when he gives an interview? There's this light that emits from him that's like you can feel his aura of just positive energy versus, if you put in your mind the image of other leaders throughout the world, it's like this fear or hate or
I think
stress.
Part of it, at least my impression of him, is he's got a plan that he is real. It's real. It's not, a finger in the wind politician that's trying to come up with something that's going to appease people, that his constituents, that he thinks is what they want to hear. He legitimately seems to believe that what he's doing is the best thing for the country, and he's going to stick to it. And he's got a plan, he's got confidence. It's real, right? And so it's a genuineness that we all feel.
The Salvadorian people are so wise that when they saw, that traditional parties were blocking him, the next election gave him 64 seats, so super majority. We have 56 seats with the News Idea Party, his party, and then the rest, different small parties. But, the Salvadorian people was like, no, new people, or we're not going to change as a country.
And you realize he has a 88, 89% approval rating.
Yes.
And that's from a third-party polling service. That's not from an internal polling service in El Salvador. It's not from something that's just supportive of him. That's from a third-party source.
Yes.
And even the politicians...
He has a lot of support.
Right. Even the politicians of the United States have acknowledged that, even when they try to, detract against El Salvador and President Bukele.
Okay, he's popular, but...
Yeah, right. He's popular,
oh, my God.
But it's like...
Our citizens are happy
right.
Of the moves, the security moves, all the measures over there, the economic measurements, and much more.
And I just find it...
That's democracy.
Right. Exactly. That, to me, is that, look, they are choosing to embrace that for a reason. So then who are we, or who is anybody else to come in and dictate, this is not okay, this is not okay? There are people who who vote, and those people who, participate in the polling questions are saying overwhelmingly, more than any leader in the world.
After almost 4 years.
After 4 years. Wow. Yeah.
So President Bukele is special. And I know he's a very brave leader for our history in El Salvador. And of course, he's going to take El Salvador to the next level. I'm so happy to be part of his team.
Well, yes, we're happy you're part of his team.
And you're doing the same thing. May I ask you, what was your first inclination that you wanted to go and serve your country and join the political movement?
I used to be in the private sector. Since the age of 14, I used to work in television.
From 14?
And all the media, yeah.
What did you do at 14?
Yeah, I work in a...
Were you an actor?
In a show.
Oh, really?
Yes.
What show was this?
It was
I'm getting on YouTube
Saturday
afterwards.
Family show. Prizes and games.
Yeah. Oh, really? Okay.
So very early, I started working in the media. And after achieving good positions and primetime shows, the last one that I had, it was called Milena Tu Amiga, Milena Your Friend. And it was like a talk show. And I had a lot of politicians and, people from organizations, movements and everything. And I realized that, a voice in a video is important, but the changes, you have to do it where you take decisions. So, and a few women are participating. So I won. And, it was quite challenging for me over there. I suffer a lot of bullying, a lot of political violence, because it's not easy coming from the entertainment to be a politician. And I have to be really, believing myself and in my projects. And, day by day, I gain a lot of support. And because I didn't, do it for something else than help my country. And I didn't have the support of the party, so I was not tied to them. And that's why I was free to decide what to do. And I think, I was there for a purpose. And the purpose was that we defeated these two political parties. the political atmosphere changed in El Salvador. The political game is different. And we have, 56 seats in News Idea backing up President Bukele government. So, it's to be part of a history of my country, I think gives me the strength and probably the inspiration to keep doing the job. And, to be with you and to promote Bitcoin adoption and the Bitcoin law in El Salvador, and of course, to sell the country as a place you can visit, you can live, or you can invest.
Well, I love it. And I am really appreciative of what you do and what President Bukele's done. I am probably be considered a fanboy, as Marshall Long would call me a fanboy, but I'm a big fan of what you guys are doing. And I think that we all need to support, the efforts with the Bitcoin law and kind of your guys' efforts to continue to adopt it and expand its use in the country and start helping bring jobs there through Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining and all the different areas that I think it's going to continue to help El Salvador move up like the world rankings and places where I think there's unlimited potential there.
Yes,
and
unlimited.
So thank you, for this invitation, and especially you, because being over there twice, and you had the experience to get to know our country, and the rest visit El Salvador.
Yes, everybody should go invest there. Throw some money down there. Help these people out and make sure that we're doing what we can to help support the ones who took the initiative and effort and took the bold move to do this in the first place. So, thank you so much for coming on. Two of the most influential women in Bitcoin. So,
oh my God.
Thank you both. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, if I hope people subscribe, like, and watch the show and leave some comments. And appreciate it. Thank you.